welcome. I'm here today with Sion Dayson. It's February 2014 and she is just finishing her residency here at the Kerouac Writers in Residence program in College Park, Florida. Welcome.
Thank you.
And we're going to start off with a reading by Sion of something that she's been doing while she's been in the house with us. So take it away.
Okay, this is a scene from my novel When Things Were Green that I revised while I was here. In this scene, my protagonist Greer is 16 years old and he's coming home after just losing his virginity. The complication is that it's 1961 and we're in a small southern town called Banning, and his girlfriend is white and he is not. Okay. He watched the white thunderbird pull away, the headlights like glowing orbs, floating, ethereally displaced. When viewed from the side, they cast sharp, narrow beams of light, but they created more a sense of seeing than aiding actual sight, the amount of darkness surrounding them so much greater. Carolyn completed the U-turn, and the back of the car now faced him, red brake lights replacing the tiny orbs. They appeared, disappeared, then finally grew distant until swallowed by the night. Carolyn had a lighted path for her return. Greer would have to stumble home with only what the stars and moon could offer, which wasn't much here under the thick forest cover. He didn't need light to guide him home, he decided. This he had learned about sight tonight, too. Sight alone couldn't lead you in the right direction. You could roll your eyes over every inch of a thing and not extract any real meaning from what you saw. Carolyn had physical beauty enough to spare, but she had something more. Magic. Greer followed the banks of the river until it wound its way to Banning. Banning. How would Banning contain him tonight, he who felt so free? He noticed everything and nothing on his way home. Every sense felt alive, his whole being saturated with Carolyn. This secret knowledge they had shared. He felt liberated and dangerous. Greer was coming up on the path behind Wilson's when he started slowing down. He would have to calm this burning somehow. How would he hide that his whole self was aflame? He rounded the corner and started walking down Main Street, half expecting that the fire he emitted would wake the town. The people would fling open their shutters and exclaim at the brightness walking down the road in his form. No one looked, however. There was no witness to his heat. Greer stood outside his door now and gathered himself to enter. He always felt he had to make himself small in this house, and he felt too big tonight. The door creaked as he opened it. His mother wasn't in the front room. He was relieved, hoped he could make it to his room and guard his wildness there. Just as he was easing the front door shut, Elizabeth padded into the living room, her slippers muffling her footsteps. "It's late," she said. "Yeah, isn't it a beautiful night?" "You know I worry about you." "Mama, you know there's nothing to worry about out there. We're in little old Banning. A place doesn't have to be big for meanness to set itself down on you." Greer was too happy to hear words like meanness tonight, too happy to feel guilty that she'd stayed up again waiting for him. "Remember how you sang that one time, Mama? Don't you think a night like this deserves a song?" He walked into the kitchen to get some water. He was thirsty, maybe thirstier than he'd ever been before. "I don't want to live afraid of what might happen," he said, because his mother hadn't answered him, hadn't said anything. "A little bit of fear protects you. There's some things you should be afraid of," Elizabeth said from behind him, following him into the kitchen. Greer drank the water in one gulp, then placed the glass back down. He turned to look at his mother, whose face was drawn from lack of sleep. He wanted to tell her how much you miss if you always stay protected, closed off. Nothing alive seeps in. He wanted to tell her about Carolyn because keeping his elation inside almost hurt. He was too full with it. He would burst. He felt it rising in him again, wondered if he would start glowing, if his mother would notice how big and bright he was. He knew he couldn't tell her, though. He knew he couldn't tell anyone. "I want to be more than just be safe, Mama. I want to do more than just survive. I want to live." Elizabeth rested her hands on the back of the chair, which stood at an awkward angle. Greer wondered what she thought about what he just said. Seemed it was all she did, survive. Didn't you ever have a time when you felt free, Mama? Haven't you ever just spent a perfect day when you felt you lived a whole life, a great one? Elizabeth didn't say anything, only got that blank look on her face she always got when he asked her anything real, anything that mattered. He looked at the sad woman before him. It was hard to conjure up an image of her that might mirror what he had felt tonight with Carolyn. Did my father make you feel alive, Mama? He said quietly. It was hardly noticeable, but he noticed how she gripped the top of the chair with her hands. I told you we never speak of the dead. And that's all you've ever told me. Shouldn't there be some joy we can talk about? Can't you ever say anything more than that? Elizabeth turned her head and gazed out the window. Is it fair? That's all you'll let him be, a drowned man. Wasn't he more than that? Greer insisted. Don't talk about it, Elizabeth said loudly. I don't want to talk about it, she said. There are things I want, Mama. Don't you see I'm suffocating here? Why do you think I go out all the time? I don't mean to worry you, Mama, I really don't, but I can't stay here cooped up, never saying anything, never being able to ask anything. Elizabeth had her back turned to him now, her arms folded across her chest. He was talking to her back now. I feel things sometimes, he said, talking slowly, not sure where the words were coming from. If maybe the freedom, unleashed and dangerous, was talking. I feel like there are things we don't say that should be said. I feel like there's got to be more, and you don't say it. I'm almost 16, Mama. I'm trying to be a man. All I want to know is something about what kind of man my father was. Don't you think I deserve that much? Greer turned back to the sink now, the two of them standing in the kitchen facing away from each other. Greer, his head down, watching the tiny drops of water inching towards the drain. Sometimes I think he must still be out there, Greer said. I don't believe you. I don't believe you sometimes. He turned around and walked past his mother, who still stood with her arms crossed tight across her chest. If he had stayed a moment longer, looked closely as he brushed past her, he would have seen her eyes growing moist. He didn't see, though. Not the tears gathering in the corners of her eyes, or that slight bit of energy a body gathers right before speaking.
Wow. Thank you. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, since we've just heard your reading, how about you tell us a little bit about your writing process? How did you come up with these wonderful words?
Oh, my writing process is sometimes a hard process. I don't start with an idea, I start with an image. This whole novel actually started with just a line of dialogue I heard.
Which was?
I was walking in Harlem and I heard some teenage girls gossiping, and one of them said something like, you know, she's pregnant and she never even had sex.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, that's really interesting. How does that come about? And I went right home and wrote a scene. And it turns out that, you know, that scene is still in the novel. And it turned into a story of a girl whose mother claimed she was immaculately conceived. She's a friend of Greer's, who we just heard about. So at first I didn't see how the two were connected. And that's often how it is when I write. I just write in little fragments. It's sort of a mosaic. And I have these little pieces and I don't see how they connect at first, but I just keep writing the scenes. I try to stay really grounded in the scenes. And eventually I start seeing what the connections are.
Now, were you taught to write like that, or is that just how it is?
That's the only way I know how to. I really envy writers who have an outline, they know what they have to write, the plot points. It doesn't work that way for me. It has to be a more organic process. It means it's a lot longer for me. It means I'm confused a lot and I take a lot of wrong turns. But, you know, it's the only way I know how to do it.
Mm-hmm. And you spent 3 months in the house. What have you accomplished while you've been here?
So I've completely revised the novel, so I'm really happy to walk away with what I feel is a completed book, which I'm gonna send out, and we'll see what happens. And luckily I also started some new work too. I started some new essays on varying subjects, but I've lived in Paris for 7 years and I haven't written that much about it, so I started writing some essays that were set in Paris.
Okay, and just to backtrack a little bit, how did you find out about the Writer in Residence program here, and what attracted you to it?
I was lucky enough to have it recommended to me by someone. I did my MFA at Vermont College of Fine Arts, and I did the MFA with Vanessa Blakesley, who lives in Orlando, and I noticed that she had done residencies all over, and so I just wrote to her and said, you know, I'd love some time and space to do this too. How do you do it? And do you have suggestions? And the Kerouac House was one of the residencies she recommended, and because I'm coming from Europe, I wanted a significant amount of time, and a lot of residencies were just for a few weeks, and I just felt like what a gift to have an entire season, 3 months. And I also really appreciated the way the residents were selected, that it was just based on the quality of work. You know, I just had to write what I wanted to work on and send in some work. You know, a lot of people ask for recommendations. The Kerouac House doesn't. So it made me feel really good about the process, that, you know, if I send in something strong, I might have a chance.
And it looks like you did.
Yeah. Yeah, I was so thrilled to be selected.
Okay. Had you been to Central Florida before?
No, this is my first time here.
What are your impressions? What do you think?
Oh, well, right now it's raining, so I can't say much, but I was very happy. I felt really comfortable here. I loved the sunshine, the lizards, you know, across the porch. That was really new for me. The Spanish moss, just slowing down, walking around the lakes. Orlando's not an easy place to live without a car, and I didn't have one, but so to me that was actually a boon. It just meant that I was here in the house working and reading and taking long walks around the neighborhood, and it couldn't have been better for my writing.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously someone's going to come after you. What kind of advice would you have for a new writer in residence here?
I think, you know, try to, wow, maybe that's the ghost of
Maybe it is.
Maybe just to try to establish routines as early as you can, so you can get into a rhythm of how your days are going to look while you're here. I found it really helpful to just know, okay, every morning I'm going to wake up, do some yoga, and then walk. And then I'll do lunch, take a long walk, and then come back and work some more. You know, and I think everyone's process is going to be different, but I think it's good to just know how you want to use the time here. But also open yourself up to surprises. You know, I didn't know when I finished revising a novel what was going to come next. And I had a little moment of panic, like, what do I jump into now? But just the space, the luxury of time and space gave me, you know, the space to figure it out. So, you know, not to put too much pressure on yourself, in fact. To know what you want to work on, but then also open yourself to whatever happens.
And you pretty much unplugged from technology while you were here, didn't you?
I did, except I still have the internet, which is my main source. But yeah, I didn't come with a cell phone. I never turned the TV on. I didn't talk on the phone here a lot, except to talk to my mom and my boyfriend. Yeah, I just thought I was here. There, you know, we're so hyper connected now, and you know, I love social media. I love being connected with people, but to really throw yourself into a project, I feel like you just need to step away from that sometimes. So
did you accomplish everything you wanted to while you were here?
Oh, I feel like there's always more.
Well, there is. Did you give it a good shot?
I gave it a really good shot. Like I said, I finished the book, so I feel like that's great. And I started something new, which was also important to me, because I wanted to walk away working on something else because I'd been working on the book for so long. So yeah, I guess.
So where do you predict, for the record, that we will hear from you next?
Oh, I don't want to make predictions. You know, I really hope that this book comes out. But if it doesn't, I want to start placing some of the essays that I've worked on. You can check out my website, siondayson.com, and you'll see if I have news to post there. And I don't know, we'll see.
All right, well, we'll be checking it out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've been a wonderful resident.
Thank you so much.